What is up, guys? Today we have probably one of the most exciting videos that I have ever made. We have the ultimate guide to shooting the basketball. Now, this is, in my mind, the most important skill that anyone can learn for basketball, and it's absolutely so present in every form of basketball, and so many players don't do it well. And we're going to be sharing some of the tips that we've come across over playing for over like 30 plus collective years, and this whole video, I guarantee you, is going to the best thing you've ever seen on shooting the basketball. And I just want to sort of caveat all of it and introduce it by sort of suggesting that it is probably pretty different to anything that you have seen before. This is not your typical shooting demonstration. We're not going to be out there with a ball showing you how to shoot the basketball. There is tons of that stuff on YouTube. In fact, we've pointed out some of our favorite of those resources within this guide, but what this video is going to be is giving you the theory behind how to shoot the basketball, because most important thing to shooting the basketball is consistency and belief, as we talk about in the video. So I don't want to hold you up too long to sort of go into all of that. We'll talk about it in the video, but I just wanted to do this intro to let you know that this is so different to anything else you've seen on shooting the basketball, and I guarantee you that you will get a ton of benefit from it. Make sure you connect with the video, connect with the resources in it. Look in the description. We have all of the links to all of the different sheets and resources that are talked about within the video. But get ready to get access to your ultimate guide to shooting the basketball, and I guarantee you it is going to be a game changer. Whether you're just starting out in basketball and you've never shot a basketball before, or you've been playing for years but you just want to give yourself that next edge when it comes to shooting. So what we're going to be going through today is one of the topics that we get asked about a ton, and this is probably the biggest question that just about every player is going to have, and I guarantee you that you probably have not seen anything like this. Now, I just wanted to set the stage and give a bit of context as to why it's set up like this. For those who don't know, I'm the resident sports scientist of the Sydney Supersonics, the head of athletic performance, and most of my professional career has been about understanding maximizing human performance, particularly in the context of athletic performance. And so I really broke down the skill of shooting as someone who's played the game for a lot of years and has worked with a lot of people on their shooting, including myself, and spoken to a lot of great shooters. And what I wanted to do was really reverse engineer what it takes to become a great shooter and provide a steady framework for anyone to work off to continue to progress their shooting based on the fundamental principles of motor learning and skill development, so that I can help people avoid the most common mistakes that happen with shooting. Now, the first thing that I want to acknowledge is that for most basketball players, the biggest thing that stops them from becoming great shooters is simply not being consistent. Really, that lack of consistency is what kills so many players, and it's killed because of their motivation. And fundamentally, when we look at the theory of motivation, we know that when people notice progress, it's like the progress principle is the principle that it's called, and it's a psychological principle. So if I type in progress principle here, we see there's a bunch of books on it, and it is a known phenomenon that states that human motivation is at its highest, and our fulfillment and satisfaction is at its highest when we know that we're noticing progress. And so fundamentally, whenever we're practicing, we're going to be experiencing some kind of progress and gains. That is the way the human body works. Our brain simply adapts to what we do regularly enough. We create new neurons in the brain. It's a concept known as neuroplasticity, that the more we do something, the more our brain can adapt to it. And so it's defined as the ability of the nervous system to change its activity in response to intrinsic or extrinsic stimuli by reorganizing its structure, functions, or connections. So if we practice shooting the basketball, we are going to get better at shooting the basketball. That is a fundamental concept, and as soon as you accept that, then you're well on your way to becoming a great shooter. And the proposition is that effectively what someone like Steph Curry has done is they have practiced this concept of neuroplasticity, understanding sort of where the break point in their training is, and then continuing to progress up to the point where they're able to perform that skill at a really high level. And if we look at this handy little image here, we can see how does neuroplasticity actually work. Here is some of the neuroscience behind it, and there is a whole bunch of chemical things going on underneath that. We don't need to get into that specific science, but the most important thing that I can stress as someone who wants to be a good shooter is that the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And then the trick becomes finding out how you can show yourself gradual progress according to the progress principle. Give yourself small wins and measure things along the way so you know that you're getting better. And that's where we've gone in to create this full guide, essentially 12 levels, to identify the components that go into the jump shot, give you a framework that you can progress towards, and then continue to progress you along that framework until you reach this point of really elite level performance. And I just want to make a note here that these stages are blank because they will vary depending on the individual that you're working with. Now I'm going to caveat this whole thing up front and say that there is nothing better than working with a coach, and that's why at the Supersonics we are really focusing in on our online coaching so that we can give you direct video feedback. Video feedback is one of the most important training tools that we can use, particularly when you're watching your own video as well as watching video of others. With watching video of others, you're undergoing a process known as subconscious mimicry, where the brain replicates the skill pattern that it's seeing in your own body. So we have these things known as mirror neurons, and if we see someone else performing a skill, then our brain, if we are already a skilled performer, will be inherently performing that skill within our own nervous system and strengthening the neural connections that create skilled performance. And so when looking at how this all applies to the jump shot and why we've set it up this way, we notice that there's, as I said, there's no better way to progress further and further and further than to work with a coach. These are just guides as to the kinds of things you should be able to do until you progress to the next level. However, when working with your coach, we will accelerate your development through here based on the level that you're currently at. And so while this is a very useful guide, I just want to mention that no matter what, there's going to be nothing better than using a coach to be able to progress you through here at an accelerated rate. And that is why it's important, because the coach can identify, they've been there and done that, they know the stages that they're going through. This is just a rough guide that will apply to most people. And these stages through here, we will obviously refine this over time, but at this stage it is too difficult to individually decide exactly what you should be doing at these levels. And so that's where working with a coach is an absolute must. So with all of that said, what I want to do is just quickly dive into some of the key concepts and the way that this is set up. So firstly, when we have at the top, we've got theory. So there's some fundamental things that we need to know theoretically to understand how to get the most out of our practice and how to be a great shooter. And the first of those I acknowledged before, which was really it's about the motivation and understanding this concept of the progress principle and how to progress, as well as understanding neuroplasticity and the idea that if we practice something, we're going to get better at it. So that is the most fundamental concept. Secondly, we want to be using a guide. We really like this guide here for the Rick Mount shooting system to give you an indication of how to exactly set up your jump shot and how to start with things in terms of practicing. So we use this guide as well as this fundamentals of shooting guide, and the ultimate sort of system that we like for shooting is the pro shot shooting system, and we link to all of this in the videos here. So I'll put the pro shot system here as well because this is really crucial, but we link to all of these things within this stuff. And so what I want to point out is that there is some fundamental theory. So using a basic shooting guide, getting the understanding of how to set yourself up is the most important thing to begin with. Then what we're doing is we're going through and analyzing exactly how we can progress our shooting over the long term. So the second thing that I want to go through is understanding this concept here, which is known as dynamic systems theory. Now, a lot of people think of muscle memory when they think of skill performance and they think of shooting, and they think that your muscles and your brain essentially remembers a way to do something, and it can only do it in one particular way. And if you do it any differently, then it's not going to be the same. For example, if you're shooting on a different height rim, or you're shooting on uneven ground, or shooting kind of in any other setting other than in a game. And what dynamic systems theory is all about, it is a little bit sciencey, and links to this video here from FRC, but they are the masters of understanding science and applying it to movement. And the reason why we mention this is because someone like Steph Curry, whenever he shoots a jump shot, the motor program that is being run by his body is completely different every single time he shoots that shot. It's not the same motor program being run every time, and that is important because there is no one right way to shoot a jump shot. Every time you're shooting a jump shot, your body is dealing with completely different stimulus every single time. And so every time you're shooting a jump shot, what is actually happening is you are accounting for all of the factors that you have to deal with, whether you're playing outdoors with wind, whether you're getting bumped, whether you're falling to a certain direction. And the most skilled performers, the Steph Currys of the world, simply are able to deal with the amount of variability that's going on in the environment and within their own body, and deal with that in a way to create the desired outcome. And so the desired outcome for Steph Curry is swishing the basketball. And so you note that Steph Curry can shoot from any type of setting. He can shoot off the, like we've got the different levels here, he can shoot off the 1-2, he can shoot off the hop, he can shoot off the dribble, he can shoot off the triple threat, he can shoot out of the pull-up, he can shoot out of the hesitation, the step back, the side step, and then he can combine it into multiple dribble moves, and all of that off the run. And all of these levels of shooting, they're all at different scalable levels. So in order of difficulty, essentially when we break down a skill, which I'll go through here, a skilled performance progresses up in order of difficulty, and it's based on some fundamental levels. So when we look through here, we've sort of got step 1, which is actually performing the skill, and then we've got performing that skill very well. So this would essentially be, this is the skill fundamentally, it's the upper body mechanics. And then the second fundamentals is integrating that with legs. And then what we find is that, okay, now we're going to include a step, and then we're going to expand the range. So this is all this stage here. It's performing the skill very well, and then we improve the speed that we're performing it at. And then it's perform the skill very well at speed under fatigue, and then it's very well at speed under fatigue under pressure, under pressure consistently, and finally in competition conditions. And so Steph Curry you might be able to drain as many shots as Steph Curry on a shooting machine, for example, but to get to the stages of elite performance, you have to be able to perform it in these conditions here. And there's no perfect environment to start practicing your skills at game specifics. What I like to say, and we like to suggest, is that you master these things here. You master level 1 to 4, which probably will take about 5 months or so of consistent practice, at least 4 times a week. And then what you can do is start to apply it into game scenarios and slowly dripping in these different forms of the jump shot to master the footwork that you're going to need to master. And so as we're looking through these different stages, this is where you need to work with a coach. You can use this as a guide, but if you want the exact specifics of how to make it work, you need to work with a coach to guide you through it. So that is one of the fundamental concepts of theory that I want to talk about. And we've talked about the dynamic systems theory, and we're going to have an optimal practice sessions lecture in the Elite Athlete Blueprint, which we will link to. And this is crucial because determining the optimal length of a practice session is going to help you get the most out of your training. Now, there's a thing known as the law of diminishing returns, and when it comes to skilled performance, it's essentially that point where you feel like you're not getting any better and your performance is starting to stagnate, and that is when it's time to stop and come back. And if you have a lot of time available, it can help to really frequently block out your training practices. So you're going for like 15 minutes and then taking a few hours off and coming back again. And it really depends on sort of what it is that you're doing. But it is incredibly important to understand how to make your practice sessions optimal. And there's a complete guide in the blueprint on that. Now, another thing we want to note is that hoop and ball size should be adjusted to suit players' development. as well as their skill and optimal technique for practice. Now, there is a note here, and there was an article linked here from the NBA about why they're doing that. And it is so important to practice these fundamental levels with perfect form, exactly like you see in this video. The swan neck and not sacrificing any of the upper body motion, because if when sacrificing form, we're creating bad habits, and we're simply not going to be able to refine the control that we need to be able to shoot it well. And so here is a guide of the rough height of the rims for different ages. It's going to vary depending on strength and the size of the balls as well. And unfortunately, in our country, there's not a lot of opportunities to play on reduced height rims. And so that's one thing that when we come back out of lockdown, we will really try to install as much as possible where we can and allow players to develop. But we really suggest, as a junior developing, if you find that you're not strong enough to be able to perform a jump shot with perfect form, then bring yourself in closer to the ring, and also don't be scared to lower the rim until you master it. There was a story from Steph Curry, and apparently Dell, his father, did not let him shoot a single jump shot from anything other than perfect form, and he was only shooting with inside the key for much longer than a lot of his peers, because his father knew that that would be what would allow him to be a much better shooter over the long haul. And I mean, it's paid dividends. He's the greatest shooter on the planet, and probably the greatest shooter ever of all time, and unlikely to be beaten anytime soon. So what we are going through, and what I'll just quickly touch on as well here down the overview stage, is the video that we're going to use to sort of teach the levels. And these are all, I mean, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, because there's tons of great material on shooting available. And so what we did was find the best material on YouTube. It's all teaching the same kind of stuff, but the biggest and most important thing is that, there's no one right form, but the thing that is right is understanding, what works for you, and then just nailing the practice side of things. If you want a checkup on your shooting form, please see one of our Sonics coaches, and we can say, okay, look, you might want to tweak this or that, because it's really important at the beginnings to get the jump shot right. And that's where we recommend sort of comparing your footage to a clip like this to understand the shot. But the most important thing is quickly being able to decide, all right, I'm happy with this shot, and now I can just rep it out and start practicing. Because what we need to do is, firstly, you need to develop the skill patterns, but second to that, we need to develop the actual strength in the muscles to get used to shooting the basketball. It does require strength, particularly in the forearms, and a lot of endurance to shoot at a high level, and so that's what we start to work on. And we're not even really worrying for these first 4 levels about the balance component or too much of the lower body component, because that balance and endurance and ability to control the body sort of comes up into these later stages of the game, specific applications of the jump shot. So each of these videos has a really good guide as to how you can shoot the ball better. And note here, this is some summaries of the Pro Shot system as to how you can shoot the jump shot really well. And it's important to pay attention to the elements of the way that Steph Curry shoots. And so the Pro Shot system we will link to, but it's a really great system to help you understand all of the elements that can go into a jump shot, and to dispel a lot of the myths that are out there about jump shooting. So as we progress through, you can see these different levels. So the test, so you got stage 1, and then you got the test. So it's like, to complete stage 1, you have to be able to perform these drills with one-handed form, repping out in the air, just shooting up in the air with both hands for 2 weeks consecutively. That's not to say you can't jump onto a hoop, but what we would recommend is that you perform this drill for 2 weeks consecutively, at least 3 sets of 20 reps each hand. So that's not a lot of work, it's probably only going to take you 5 or 10 minutes, but this is just building the strength, building the motor pattern, and taking the pressure off yourself to need to shoot a ton of shots initially. And that will get you really good base of strength, so that then you can progress into a real hoop. And that said, if you don't have access to a hoop, you can continue doing this essentially forever. Even myself as a shooter, if I don't have access to a hoop, then I'll just do a couple sets of shots in the air, and that's really helping to just continue strengthening the muscle and reinforce the pattern. Now this one-handed form section, we're getting you to really sort of nail 5 shots in a row, both hands right under the hoop. And the important thing is to work both hands, because when we work both sides, we actually get a significantly greater skill benefit to both of the sides. So the skill benefits can increase by up to 50% if working both sides, and it's just to do with the way the body adapts to things, and the body likes to be sort of in symmetry and in balance. And so as we go through, you're going to be performing it with one hand, as the same as this video as we've outlined here, and then we're bringing the guide hand for the dominant hand. So you're going 5 shots in a row, both hands, making sure you get the guide hand right when shooting with both sides, aligning the hip to the basket and everything that's crucial for it. Now, this is all pretty self-explanatory up to these levels. If there is a clarification needed, please reach out to your coach. But what I also wanted to pay attention to was this down here. So this is the typical ages for these different levels of shooting, and a really important thing to keep in mind is that this level of, so once you get past the 1-2, the level of ability to perform these shots is really dependent on your age. So I would not think that many players under the age of 14 really need to worry about shooting off the hop, shooting off the dribble, shooting off the triple threat. Most of the players should just really focus on mastering these fundamentals of shooting and then nailing the 1-2, because the pressure is just simply not going to be there at the level to need to shoot like off the hop. And then once you've nailed the 1-2 and you've really refined the motor pattern, then the hop becomes easy, because the hop is highly dependent on strength and athleticism, and a player would be much better off sort of focusing in on developing their athletic ability, developing their playmaking ability and decision-making ability, to then, as they get stronger, start to incorporate some of these elements. I mean, really below the age of 14, shooting off the dribble is a little bit different, but shooting out of pull-up jump shots, or shooting off hesitation, or shooting a step back or a side step, just really isn't necessary. And there's so many better scores that players at this age can do. And of course, that is a generalization. There's going to be some players playing at a really high level who will benefit from that, but it's just a thing to note. And so these are the rough ages. If you were just starting out with basketball and you wanted to know, okay, how do I start shooting the basketball really well and what should I be expecting, then these are the rough ages to keep yourself to these stages with. That said, there's no reason why a strong 6-year-old couldn't get to level 4 or 5 pretty quickly. I've seen some 6-year-olds who do that, and then you just adjust the size of the rim to suit your strength. But that's a really important thing. The 1-2 shot is going to allow you to shoot with a bit more strength under it, and then as you get to the hop, you're probably going to be costing your strength to be able to shoot the basketball. So focus in on the shot, and then you know that you've nailed it, and you can focus on other areas of your game like dribbling and handling and playmaking and all the rest. And so if you were not of these ages and you were just starting shooting and you're a bit older, then here is a rough way to progress yourself through the different levels, with different timelines. So say you were 17 and you just started out shooting and you want to nail it, then you go, all right, first I'm going to work on my upper body mechanics. First month of basketball. Level 2, okay, that's going to take two months to complete. Second and third month. Fourth month, okay, 4 months, 5 months. And that's a 5-month plan to completely rebuild your jump shot. And then by the end of that 5 months, you can then go into these game-specific applications of the jump shot. And that doesn't mean that you have to stop shooting or you have to stop playing or anything like that. It's more just put a 5-month plan in, 3 to 4 days a week of doing these fundamental things. It's only going to take you probably 20 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week, and you will see serious dividends in your ability to perform the skill at a really high level. And so that is the rough guide to the levels of basketball being applied to shooting. We're working on this same concept for dribbling and other fundamental skill sets that are applicable for 3-on-3, but that should really give almost the complete guide to shooting the basketball for just about any player. And for the refinements on that, please reach out to us as coaches and we will help you. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoy it.